This is NerdFT Radio, where nerds full-time explorers of the metaverse, surfers of the blockchain, and not in our mom's basement. I'm your host, RSG, aka the Croc Maxi, and I'm here with Crypto Crier, aka Down Really Fucking Bad. But enough about that. We're going to talk about the real reason we're here. We have a very special guest. We have the artist and co-founder of Deadfellaz, and the best title of them all, third-time guest on the show. How are you, Psych?
Very important.
I'm good. Am I the first one?
Yeah. The first one to be the three-peat and the first one to miss 3 in a row.
Yes. Unfortunately, Australia and Eastern Standard Time, it just doesn't mix well. But here we are. We're here. 7 phone calls and 7 ats later. Psych, you're here. How are you, buddy? We haven't talked to you in a while.
All good. Thanks, Socks. I'm the first one with a hat trick, so it's worth it.
That's right. It's worth it.
Bam.
What you been up to, my guy?
So what are we talking about?
Of course, the real reason we're here, Psych, is because you got something cooking over there in the Deadfellaz side. You have a trading card game. Go ahead and explain to the viewers what the heck is going on over there. We actually, what's really funny, the last time you were on the podcast, we talked a little bit about it because you're like mapping, hey, this is what I want to go ahead and do with Dead Friends. And now, obviously, there's more of a picture here. So what's changed since the last time we spoke?
Yeah, so essentially the catalyst was Dead Friends. I've always been an enthusiast when it comes to trading card game and the format in terms of just storytelling and the way that you can essentially deliver characters in that format. So when we started Dead Friends, that just started the wheels turning basically on us, putting together all the documentation on what we wanted to achieve, evaluating the space in Web3, evaluating the space in TCGs, in the digital space in general. I guess that's where like your evaluations of things like Hearthstone, Marvel Snap, you got your Web3 successes like Parallel come in. And that's essentially us. Like the last 10 months would just been basically like me and 2 other creatives just on and off putting together documentation on just from top to bottom, basically game mechanics, all the different factions, how that's going to roll out over year 1, year 2, and then shifting into live ops with the seasonal releases and things like that. Just deep diving. So now we've got like probably like too big of a game design doc. Essentially, I call it the raw game design doc. And that's who we're working with Unity now to essentially distill that down into our year 1 plan, year 2 plan on getting the game out, getting people playing it. So that's it, essentially. From the top, like just a description of RIP's TCG. We keep shifting from codename to codename, but right now we're at RIP TCG. And it's essentially like an anti-TCG TCG. And to describe what exactly that means is that we're only really using the TCG format to encapsulate the characters, like attach unlockables and a stat block to a playable piece for the battlefield. But it is very much a tactical squad-based, turn-based battler. So it's a lot more cinematic than your typical digital TCG. We're not creating a tabletop simulator. It very much translates into a different field of battlefield, essentially. If you're familiar with something like XCOM, or you've been playing Fire Emblems, Fallout Tactics, Final Fantasy Tactics, anything that essentially is a lot more active.
JRPGs, RTS type stuff, a little bit more.
Exactly, but at a more intimate level. So it's essentially like a 16 slot battlefield right now, like eight aside. The camera is a lot closer in, and it's actually like a lane camera as of right now, because we're working with some cool things to basically have it like a vertical video cam where you're over the shoulder in a third person view. Yeah, that's essentially us with what we're looking to achieve with RIP. There's a lot of smaller pieces that are exciting. I think that as an enthusiast, it's all those little pieces coming together that are really exciting. But yeah, just basically looking to achieve something where I've wanted to see it exist within the digital TCG space in general. Like for me personally, I find I'm a blend between super sweaty and super casual. Like I end up just playing drafting on Hearthstone. So it's like getting those adrenaline kicks of being able to see the synergy of cards and put them together, but at the same time not spending like every waking
40
moment
hours.
going through like drafting, looking up drafting sites and trying to put decks together, and then they fail, and I'm like, that's a wasted
wasted all my day.
wasted night.
That's definitely what I do with Marvel Snap a little bit, but it is what it is on that side. I gotta ask you a question. Obviously, you guys already had the actual like pre-mint and everything like that for holders, and right now, are you guys still in public that you're able to purchase them?
We are, yeah. So we're still in public for 3 days. So yeah, you can still pick up vaults if anyone hears this before the deadline on the 23rd. The vault sale has always been something where we purposely just push that out to people that were already supporters of ours, or people that were already supporters of the TCG format, or just vibed with the different details that we're releasing on what we're looking to achieve, which has been really important to us, so that we actually had the right people that were like there in alpha, that want to be there for game testing, that want to see these details as they roll out. It's really important for us to transition from being basically like a PFP native like NFT community, and transitioning everyone that's around the TCG is essentially someone that likes gaming, that likes TCGs, that likes talking about game mechanics, that likes being in early access and things like that. So we've really purposely just kind of messaged that out, and it's gone over quite well. I think we're at around 4,500 vaults so far minted, so that's exciting. Everything else is being pushed to the company treasury just on a drip for user acquisition and different things like that. So that's really exciting to actually have some supply to work with over the coming years. One thing that a regret of ours was with Deadfellaz, we were a little bit too generous. Like, we had a company treasury of around 1,000 Deadfellaz and essentially pushed them out through giveaways and community things for collectors over maybe the first 6 months or so, or the first year, which was great for everyone, but it ended up, it just doesn't give us as much flexibility. So that's something that we've
room to actually create something.
Yeah,
it's definitely, we're seeing in real time like what collections are doing, and what's making them thrive or survive during the bear markets. Gaming definitely seems to be the largest push in terms of what's coming out for the next foreseeable rally or peaked interest inside of NFTs, right? Everyone's kind of off the PFP currently. People are wondering, all these games have promised games, all these NFTs promised games for 2 years, and now we're actually getting something that is actually being tangible, which I find interesting, right? We've seen Yuga kind of release some stuff. We've seen, even though it's terrible, the Parallel they're awful. Except Doogie Dash was good, but yeah. But anyways, Parallel came out. They've been saying they're going to make a card game for 3 years now. Early 2020 was when they first started, I think. So I definitely think that now they've finally got something that's viable. So these things take a very long time. Personally, we talk about Parallel all the time now, I feel like, but they did a really good job just on the sense of what to expect from NFT type based gaming, with the whole, you can mint it and play with the NFTs. You get rewarded with that. You can use the echoes to make the cards to then sell essentially to people who don't care about the NFT side of it and just want to play the game, which I think is super cool. So that kind of gives them a revenue model where we had them on the podcast, but it gives you that model where you're able to do what you want versus it's free to play, but we have all these, the game sucks because we have to squeeze money out of you somehow to continue development. Whereas the super sweaty people actually pay for everybody because they find that part in the competition driving the use and the sales and all that stuff. So they're able to actually get on the business side, they're actually able to do more leeway with what they actually want to create, which I think is interesting and a good way for, similar to what you're talking about now with treasury and stuff like that, to actually get some shit done.
Yeah, exactly. You just gotta be careful in game development. There's a lot of pitfalls. I am very pleasantly surprised by the Parallel team pulling through and actually being able to deliver everything that they talked about. Obviously, it's like the start of their development journey, like having just shipped the game state, but speaking to them back in the day and what they wanted to achieve, just essentially being on like a Magic the Gathering scale in terms of lore and the balancing, I wasn't nervous for them. It's not something that we're setting out to achieve. We're definitely like on leaning towards the Marvel Snap Hearthstone in terms of complexity.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank
I
you.
think that they're doing a really
Smart
great
brain
job
here.
of balancing out 5 different factions and them all
For
having a storyline. So
Yeah, definitely.
That was actually one of the things that I was talking to Crier about. Parallel, phenomenal game, the whole nine, but like you just said, it is complicated. You have to sit down, you have to understand. If it wasn't for Crier jumping on a Discord chat with me to help me understand what the hell I'm doing, I definitely was never going to pick that game up ever again because it was just so hard at first. Maybe the tutorial should be a little bit easier, or that made you actually do the tutorial and enforce it. They'll be like, hey, idiot, watch this shit so that you understand what the hell is going on. That's actually what a lot of feedback I've received from a lot of people I've been trying to stream, as well as just overall checking out Web3 games. It's like at first I was like, what the hell's going on? Thankfully, like I said, I had Crier to go ahead and jump in, but others, they just go over to another streamer, understand what the hell's going on. They're like, all right, I can do this now. And they jump back in. But to your point where like a Hearthstone or a Marvel Snap, it's more the sense of it's just an easy to pick up game that's going to allow you to play whenever and wherever. That's what I personally love about Marvel Snap. I can be in line for something, or I could be just again taking a break for whatever reason. I'm able to play one, if not two or three games, just wasting some time, and then I'm ready to go. Where on the parallel side, I'm sitting there for it's going to be like a 15-minute, if not a little bit longer than that, for the full game to go ahead and play. So that's what obviously for me personally is what I'm looking for. Again, trading card games at this point in this day and age, they deserve to be on mobile where it's easy for people just to play the games. But of course, I understand there is the opportunity on PC and even on consoles and whatnot. But again, I personally believe just it has to be on that mobile side of things. That's
it's more conducive on mobile for sure.
It's just easier.
I think so too. We're a mobile first build. We're going to have early access through PC, just basically through porting that view over in terms of the UI with a few tweaks, just like to resolution. But we will be a mobile first build in terms of just like having something that's super intuitive. Also looking to flash it out to something that actually isn't landscape. So it's still like a vertical experience in terms of what the UI can handle and what you can bring up on screen. So I think that's really exciting for us because I've not really seen any TCGs or even just like apps do it well, apart from essentially like the Subway running apps and stuff like that. But
Marvel Snap, I think, they did a really good job on it because it's still vertical on the phone too.
That's true. That is true.
And they definitely just like the UI based on for the.
I'm killing it right now, Marvel Snap. Just to let you guys know, I'm crushing.
I mean, yeah, as a person who is a deep trading card game person, I commend them very much so for making it like still have strategy, being a 3-5 minute game on your phone, free to play. I definitely feel like it's definitely done a good job on what a standard, quick, not super strategy intense card game should look like. I think they've definitely.
So I gotta say that the cool thing about something like Marvel Snap is that it's like very simple to pick up it very quickly. I guess like the sweaty side comes out, like it finds you as you start getting more stuck into, especially the competitive side. If you're trying to actually have I guess like a competitive angle to your play, you're not just playing for fun. You do start to see like things emerge on what you want to achieve and what cards have got like a really great synergy and what's more flexible with the randomness of the lane effects. I think that's the only thing that is a little bit too random for me. Like I find like it can be a very disappointing element of just to have a complete curveball thrown at you with that third lane and be like, it's a waste of a match.
I've already placed 2 things here and now they're negated or something. Or
let me ask you guys, don't you think that I agree with Crier? Don't you think that kind of makes the game like each time you play just a lot different? Like the whole what I see with mobile games, it gets repetitive when you start playing a bunch of these games, and I believe like that randomness allows you to want to come back because you're like, shit, if it wasn't because of this, I would have won. Let me play again because the next one's not going to be like this. So
That's true.
I agree with what you're saying. Where like, trust me, I've gotten my ass smacked multiple times because of that third, even second lane. But it is interesting to like to view where like people play more because they're like, damn it, this is not the one. Let me try it next. I know Crier, the one thing he hates about Marvel Snap is the ability to retreat. That's the one that pisses him off. But Crier, just to let you know, one of the brand new locations, it doesn't allow. Actually, I forgot the name, but it doesn't allow you to retreat after turn 5. Not fully what you're looking for, but at least
still better than none
of what you're looking for. Correct.
Yeah, I found the snap system is a really interesting way to essentially just have mind games within there as well. Just
100%.
Bluff people into leaving quickly.
Oh yeah. Crier always snaps though. He's an asshole.
Crier seems like a snapper. Yeah,
like every single time.
I mean,
doesn't care if he's gonna
you play half the amount of games to raise the rank. It's
very true. Right now, to be honest with you guys, the community, the Marvel Snap community, is like wanting to like just blow up pretty much because everyone's complaining about Galactus, like bad. Like it's really bad, and they're saying
I actually stopped playing when there was Galactus, and that's when I stopped playing.
And now
because it's like such a stupid card.
We're pretty much getting. They actually updated it where, but when you played Crier, if you played Galactus and that was the only card there, it would happen, like the effect, the cutscene or whatnot, the effect. But now it's you have to be winning that lane to go ahead and do it. But now what's going on is a lot of people are using this brand new card that's out that just like blows up. It's just a whole 9 and everyone's pissed off tremendously. And we're going to see if they're going to be able to change the game here because a lot of people are saying because of this card that the lifespan of this game could be a lot shorter than others because it's just not fun after a while where you just know it's a Galactus deck and you're just like, I'm not going to do this right now. Like, hell no. But
I mean that's by far the biggest problem with just creating card games in general, right? Is introducing new cards to keep the game fun, but also has to be extremely balanced because the new cards can't disrupt. That's why people will look at Magic Gathering. They have like seasons where they integrate a new like mechanic, and then those are the only ones that are viable to play in on like the ranked positions or in tournaments and stuff like that. So that because the old cards synergies with these would be too strong or not enough or whatever, they allow it to be able to keep it competitive.
Yeah, there's something about Marvel Snap and just the simplicity of the gameplay and the way that you build up energy, and that if you have an end game card that is extremely powerful and you've got it in your hand, you will be able to play it essentially, like almost 10 out of 10 times. And I think that like when you look at something like, say, Magic the Gathering, if they're pushing out like a new set of cards and there's some like real heavy hitters in there, like they'll have either really hard conditions to me to actually get it out and get it actually hitting its synergy that it wants to hit, or it'll just have a massive energy cost where like you need to be on a massive roll to actually it's essentially just like a nail in the coffin type card where it's like, oh, I'm like truly done. It's just like
whereas we're talking about the Galactus one. It's
Galactus,
the energy doesn't matter that much in the game. Everyone's going to get that amount of energy. And there's
just no chance for you to not really hit it because like when you've capped it out,
But you have to build a deck around countering Galactus at that point.
That's the whole thing. I was literally watching a streamer. Sure. And for the people that think that you're closed-minded and smooth brain, I'm like, damn. I'm like, all right, I'll think about it a little bit. If the people that say you can counter Galactus, and that's not the point.
The deck meta is Galactus and an anti-Galactus deck. That's not fun.
Then that's all you're gonna play right now. Then that's literally what's going on right now. I have an anti-Galactus deck at the moment, and I'm destroying people. It's actually really funny, but it's just I agree. But I also Galactus is fun to use at times, but again, to the lifespan of the game, Galactus probably is going to hinder to that if they don't change something on that side. On the lifespan of the game, because people are not. How many people do you think stop playing because of Galactus? Oh, I mess up words all the time, Crier. Let me do that. But you literally just mentioned that, Crier, where you stop playing Marvel Snap because of Galactus, and how many other people have been playing and they're like, screw this, I'm not going to do this ever again, and we're able to see it. What actually could showcase those stats if the trading card game was on the blockchain and everything was on that, and you can show the stats. Look at that.
I mean, I'm sure they can still show the
Psych,
stats.
are you making a trading card game or something? Can you attest to this theory here where the stats behind it could actually help a lot for the holders and for yourself?
The stats?
Yeah.
They have stats of what the game played and what cards were used.
You wouldn't that
as a person, you don't see it.
as a person, you
you're
don't see,
saying?
but you can actually.
Oh, you mean just like surfacing just like different
The chain
KPIs
open.
around win rate and
Yeah.
so
Yeah,
that'll all be
100%.
so that's actually all
It's
surfaced
like
with
doing
us.
analytics.
We basically have to surface all of that because when you're an on-chain game, there needs to be like a level of transparency. I think that's also one exciting part of just being a Web3 enabled game is that you can have basically draw rates. People can know what pool they're pulling from, like what cards are they probably going to get from a pack, or what cards will they get from a pack, and what are the draw rates in terms of percentage. And then like how many rares exist, what's the win rate on a particular card, what's the win rate on a deck. One thing that we're doing that I'm excited about is actually attaching the ranking system to the deck itself. Essentially, when you create a deck and enter it into ranked play, it seals it up and gives that a rank. You essentially will be able to, across the 3 factions, or even across just having multiple decks, you can try and raise them up through rank independently. So you can actually just essentially still remain competitive, but play around and be like a multi-faction player. Instead of like just basically needing to chase this one singular meta that's just crushing in the moment for an entire season. Like you just basically are like, oh, I'll just rinse and
that's why I quit
this.
Hearthstone too. I don't want to spend $180 to be competitive because all the cards you got rid of are now not be able to use / you just released something 3 months ago, but now none of those are good anymore because all your new decks are way better and stronger. I feel like that's definitely the creep of long-term card games, where I think Magic has probably still done the best on that. Like, they've definitely, I don't know, they always feel much, if the balance feels real. Whereas stuff like Hearthstone, I always feel like every time I ever play that game, it's if you're not playing Warlock Zoo and Armor Warrior, it's over. Or your skill doesn't matter until like you get like ultra, unless you're like incredibly good. You know what I'm saying? That definitely tends itself to be a tough thing to conquer for sure.
Yeah,
Again,
I think that like
the model idea.
When you look at games like Marvel Snap, and then you look at something like Hearthstone and how long Hearthstone's been around for, it's when you do return to them, I think that if you're in charge of balancing in the kind of seasonal rollouts of something like Hearthstone, if the powers that be that are like in charge of Hearthstone running, people are really resonating with quicker play, they'll most likely put pressure on you to shift those seasonal cards and those new kind of packs out to something that's actually going to shorten the match times across Hearthstone. So it'll just be like either things that are just very quick in terms of how they can take someone out, or different mechanics to essentially just shorten the time that you used to on Hearthstone. I suspect that's probably going to be something that, if it hasn't happened, you'll start to see happen, just in terms of just like them wanting to shift the gameplay a little bit. But
keep
I found the same thing
Zoomers
every
entertained
time
with their 3-minute attention
Yeah,
spans.
that's why I just play drafting now. I find it actually really great because they just slide all the new cards into the drafting packs, and you get to know the different kind of synergies between the cards, and you're not trying to chase them down in the packs.
Is that a newer thing, the drafting thing? I haven't played that on Hearthstone yet.
It's called something like everything in Hearthstone is like just called something else, like the game modes, but it's just drafting. It's like tournament play drafting, and you just pull random cards as you're going, and then you select from basically
like 6 packs
or 5 cards, and then you slide them in, and then you're up against say 10 different players, and you just like basically go in against them. Everyone does their match, and then it gives you a new selection. You get to slide some extra cards into what you're building up. So that's a great thing. That's one thing that we're fleshing out as well. We have to come to market essentially through PvP and just remain very focused. But even just the modular way that we're fleshing out the field of play and how the cards come in, we will have PvE. We'll also have drafting as game modes, because it's essentially just something like drafting really allows people to remain casual but stay really engaged and just explore, basically see all the different cards that are available, see what kind of like synergies between different cards they like, without having like huge commitments to actually chase those down up front. And obviously PvE, some people just hate being competitive. Some people, they just don't
want something new too. I remember when they released that first Hearthstone PvE thing, and it was just like, it's something new to do, and it was fun. it was still challenging. You still had to, especially in the later ones, you had to do it multiple times to even become close or find the mechanic that's actually going to get you over that puzzle piece. You have to make it.
Yeah, it was like the single player missions, right? It was like a questing type thing. Yeah, it was good because it was like a puzzle essentially. A lot of them you had to go the exact right route to
for sure
overcome what was going to happen. Yeah. But yeah, I think that just having flexibility offers a lot of different things up, even just with one card that people are like, oh, this is useless. But then you hit PvE, and you'll be like, oh, this card's actually brilliant for this because it's got sustain that you usually wouldn't need in a PvP because everyone's trying to come out hot and heavy.
For sure. I actually that brings up a good point too. We have the vaults coming out, you getting like a huge amount of cards. You're getting like 450 cards for a vault, right?
Yeah, so the vault itself is 450 cards over 3 sections, and each section is split into the 3 different factions. So across the factions, we've got the RIP mercenary faction, which is essentially Deadfellaz, but slid into the lore of like why it is that they're actually being used as mercenaries within these battles. We got the Hydron Plague, which is essentially the origins of the virus and everything on the undead side. We haven't revealed much of the lore around that. And then we've got the Divide AI. So essentially around the plague, there's a very large quarantine city surrounding all of it. And it's looked after by an AI force that's quite suppressive. So that's the other factions. They have their styles of play, very much something that plays off each other. They have distinct play styles. But those factions, those 3, will be our main factions for the majority of the rollout, like in terms of years. We have like stage 2, essentially defectors, where those 3, if you look at it in terms of just a Venn diagram of three different factions overlapping, there's defectors between each, which start blending those lines a little bit, and then there's factionless cards. In terms of how those vaults unlock, it's 1/3 of it opens in alpha, 1/3 opens in beta, and then 1/3 opens in the open stage.
Live.
And each one of those stages opens into 3 factions. So you essentially have 50 cards per faction per phase that unlocks.
Okay, I got you. Cool. I like that breakdown for sure. Are you getting?
I think Socks is
muted or something. Muted. Yeah, you're getting it. Saying it's. Oh, there you go.
Can you hear me now? That's ridiculous. This is unprofessional. But what I was gonna say was, thankfully or hopefully, we're looking into something like that what you were talking about with Hearthstone and drafting. Because I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm gonna have 10,800 cards, and I have no idea what the hell to do with my life right now. Because when this game comes out, I'm not looking at 10,800 cards to make one deck to destroy criers. What the heck do I do? What's gonna happen to me?
Good luck, guy.
Well, so the deck building right now, you essentially have 22 cards in a deck, and there's a little bit of sway because we're still doing some refinement on the game balancing on how many cards happen and where we actually have that cutoff on the turns. But as of right now, 20 with 22, because there's a captain card and then there's also a companion card, which is essentially an active power, like you would see in something like Hearthstone with the classes, and then the companion, that's where Dead Friends essentially come in, is a passive. So you can attach independently to other things that are going on within the deck. You essentially attach an active power and you attach a passive, which as you can have some cool, I guess, just like flexibility with what it is that you want to achieve. So yeah, if you've got that many cards, it depends how many vaults you've got, to be honest. So say if you've got
24.
If you've got 10 volts, it's going to be 500. 24. You got 24. Okay, so it's going to be 1,000. No, wait, yeah. So it's going to be around 1,000 cards per faction in the alpha, right? So you'll have 1,000 Hydron, 1,000 cards from the RIP Mercs, and then you have 1,000 cards from Divider AI. But we do have, so there is an upgrade system. There's also a recycling system and a few other things where you can basically shift a lot of the cards if you've just got an outrageous amount of duplications into different spaces. Obviously, the fact that they're also on chain means that you could just become a local game store.
Lovely.
yourself.
Awesome.
GameStop. We need LPs. We need LPs for switching our cards and stuff right now. But yeah, that's a good kind of, we talked about recycling and stuff like that. And that's a big mechanic on Hearthstone that, to be honest, I don't like at all. Where that's the reason I loved trading card games from a general is being able to trade them. And I think that's the biggest benefit and probably why a lot of the trading cards are going to NFT route first. And that's the kind of the genre that's been Gods Unchained and Skyweaver and this and Parallel. There's like a ton of these that are like the first movers. It's all been card games, is because that's such a easily improved system, right? There was, again, I'm not a big fan of Hearthstone recycling. I think over time you just lose so much value by literally collecting all these things, but now I got to burn them because I don't want to spend another $80 to make something new that's actually working now. To me, it just, as a longtime collector, and you wouldn't burn your old Pokemon cards to make a new Pokemon card. Like you would just get the other new ones and trade the ones that you didn't want anymore.
And if you give me an incentive, I might burn it. Hold up.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a for and against. I think that the way that it like ultimately unfolds is just like how does the recycling actually come back into the fold? What does the act of recycling actually give you in terms of like what resource is it actually giving you, and then like where can that actually go from that point? Right? Because I think if you're gonna have something where you're effectively creating a baseline for like basic cards and things like that, obviously being a free to play, like we have a system where it's effectively you end up with a basic rookie deck through starting play and hitting different checkpoints in terms of like how many matches you played and things like that. So I think there's just like flexibility that it holds, but I do agree that you need to be careful with it not diminishing how people approach like the new card sets and basically just like decimating the older cards as people shift from like meta to meta.
I'm excited about it. Again, this is one of my genres that I enjoy the most, and I just said, I think it's a really cool one that NFTs can be the most beneficial towards this genre of game in general, that and RPGs. I do think that this is a great mechanic to flesh out, and I'm excited to see what you guys create because we've been big fans of the ecosystem, and I know you've been a big ass gaming nerd, and we always talk about that too.
It's like a combination of things that just immediately made sense. I'm sure your minds went to it when you started getting involved with crypto, and then like NFTs started popping up in the different like contract standards and things like that. It was just like, this just makes so much sense. Like, why am I pouring my paycheck into these digital card games and then I just like uninstall it like years later?
Yeah, I played Hearthstone since the beta. I tried to be pretty competitive. I used to do tournaments and stuff like that. I'm sure on my account I played the first, I don't know, at least 10 seasons, and every month, every time there was a new season, you spent at least $150 at least, I feel like, over that time frame.
You're calling me trash for spending $10 on Marvel Snap, and you were spending $150 on Hearthstone?
Oh yeah,
ridiculous. You're just gonna act like that's okay. Like you just go off on me all
the
time.
Different the time was just like, I came from Magic would cost way more than that.
If you Magic was outrageous. And don't even
Magic
get me
was very expensive to beat. But you were saying you were getting like a physical card, and they had tradability values. Like sometimes you hit big. Like I remember one pack, I bought like a booster box, and I got like super lucky. I was able to get way more out of the booster box value wise than I was able to paid for it. I'd rather just, if I'm spending that money, I'd still rather get rid of it at some point. I don't play Hearthstone anymore, and it's literally probably like $1,000 just sitting there worth of garbage cards that no one finds valuable anymore because it doesn't. That makes sense. Those cards don't even be able to be played anymore. But yeah, it's tough.
Yeah, I think that there's just so many different things that come into play, because at the same time, would you ever pop back and possibly just start playing again if you completely just exited all of your cards and just sold all of them? Like someone that's playing like Magic the Gathering, if you went to your local game store and sold every card that you own, are you ever probably going to start playing again? So I think there's like fors and against in terms of the game ecosystem on whether that's good, like at the end of the day, for the actual like game business wise. But I think that just giving people flexibility is just something that we need to come to terms with just in tech.
Who's going to actually go to their store and sell everything? Look at my hidden folder on NFTs, bro.
Well, you got to.
No one sells any of this.
It's solving, right? Like, you can't go down, just pop down to your local on the corner and be like, "Hey, I've got like these $10,000 worth of 20 years worth of Magic the Gathering cards."
They're like, "I'm gonna be $750
right now. I'll take cash, thanks."
Yeah.
That definitely makes sense. Now, Psych, let me ask you on the sense of this game, the alpha. When are you projecting? Obviously, these can be loose numbers here. When are you projecting for the alpha?
2020. So it's alpha, like playable alpha in 2024, then beta in 2025.
So end, middle, early. Which one? You gotta give me something.
January 1st.
I can't tell. I honestly can't tell you anything. Yeah,
damn,
we're aiming for as soon as possible, but I can only when it's our own timelines. But like, we're working with a team of professionals that ex AAA, so they will quite literally murder me if I just start saying.
So if your camera was on, is what you're saying is the red dots on your forehead as we speak.
Yeah, essentially. I've got to be more. Right? We're transforming into a world where Web3 is very much transferring into Web2, right? And gaming is one of the most strict industries in terms of information and how we handle ourselves. So it's going to frustrate some people in the way that we need to like message, but we'll continue to try and be as transparent as possible. But yeah. That's my answer on the on the
Crowd, you're the alpha guy. Go grab some stuff from this guy. Don't let him.
I'm thinking quarter 3. No comment. But yeah, what else you been doing, man? We always like to shoot the shit. What other stuff you been doing on the other side?
What else
are you games? Nothing.
I've been playing games. Have you been playing Baldur's?
I have not, but I heard it was awesome.
Right? I don't know. I'm Australian, so I always say the words wrong. But
how'd you say it again?
Baldur's. Is it Baldur's?
I've always heard Baldur's Gate, Baldur's, but that sounds, you're saying the same thing. Whatever. I haven't played it. I heard it was really good though.
They always say it in the game, which is
okay. Yeah. You got the Australian version.
Anyway, that's it. That's a brilliant game. I've always really loved D&D, so I've been having fun with that every now and then. It's got that sweaty save system, which is fantastic because I can just save scum to the max. Every single moment you can just save. I've just basically just
replay it like 17 times.
Like when you've got like 99% like crit chance on an attack and then you miss, I'm like, nah, it's getting reloaded.
Ain't no way. Reload this, please and thank you.
Cheating.
Oh man.
I'm playing Starfield.
It's not cheated.
Yeah, you're playing Starfield. I'm literally just playing Marvel Snap. I try to play Starfield, but
incredible.
Listen, man, I need direction in my life. I need someone to tell me what to do and how to do it. And Starfield for me, it opens it up, and I'm like, I have no idea what the hell I'm supposed to be doing. I will try it more. But
any planet or any moon, and fly around. That's it. No, it's fine.
I mean, I'll figure it out. I got to figure it out on that side. But on the Marvel side, again, just Marvel Snap. Psych, have you been watching any shows or any movies lately that you want to geek out about? And the only right answer here is One Piece. So, did you watch One Piece?
Yeah, I'm a couple episodes in. And you don't need to worry about spoilers because I feel like the anime, I probably hit around the 1,000 episode mark and then I'll stop and then I'll restart again. And then
so
I haven't seen it.
Oh, so we're good. We're good. You're part of the gang here. So yeah, Cryer actually was one of those that officially saw it. And he was the one that told me like the anime was not good. He watches this. And even his wife was like, hey, this is actually pretty enjoyable. So they're crushing it on all ends. And of course, we just got a renewal of season 2. Obviously, we need to wait until the strikes are over. But I don't know what's going to happen there. By the way, have you guys been also hearing about the strikes on the video game side of things? I'm worried. All these strikes are happening, and my ass is going to be very bored in 2024, 5, and 6.
Yeah, so there's a huge crossover with just like the entertainment industry and the video game industry, especially on the AAA side. Like when you look at how much motion capture goes in, how much voiceover work, if anything, a lot of the different elements, just like on the animation side and everything that's been happening on the strikes there, like those are huge crossovers for gaming. I'm not surprised that it's leaking over.
I have to ask, Psych, in the Web3 gaming side of things, outside of Parallel, what game are you excited about, or what game are you like, damn, this shit sucks? Because right now, it's all this shit sucks right now. So you got tell me you got some alpha for us. Like,
there's a few games. There's a few games that like I can't. I'm not gonna name names, but I would say that the majority.
I'll clip it.
The majority of Web3 gaming is an absolute disgrace, and absolutely, like, most of them don't even have a right to call themselves games. A lot of them are essentially developer-led, just UI, like being called a game. So I think
my voting system.
Yeah, like people like when I was talking about, we're talking about bringing a TCG to market, and it's not just a TCG. We're doing things that I think will most likely disrupt TCGs just in general, because I think we've got a really unique vision for what the actual gameplay is like.
Will be the future.
Because even just the act of playing the PvE is something that's a lot more intimate, and it's like a 2-lane system, and almost becomes, if you've played Darkest Dungeon, it has like a survival, like horror element to how that plays. It's a lot different to anything that you see like just in the traditional kind of gaming side. But with Web3, I would say mostly a disgrace. So when people are like, oh, like Web3 gaming is... Sorry?
Instead of saying, hey, I'm not going to say any names, you're just literally going to say everyone's name because you're saying it's a disgrace. So
I think that honestly, just everyone needs to do better. Everyone just needs to do better. Like most things that I see are essentially just like AAA clones that are done not as well. And then they've just essentially bootstrapped a token ecosystem to it before it's ready to play. So it'll just be like a Fortnite clone, or be like a League of Legends clone, or be like some other just like clone that brings nothing except just a subpar version of what they've seen in the traditional space. And it just doesn't make any sense for anyone to pick that up, because the token side is a drawback. Gamers don't want anything to do with that shit. If you strap that onto a game as if it's a benefit, it just isn't at all. The way that we're approaching Web3 in this TCG is the only features that are being embedded into this is something where if I was at a gaming convention, I can confidently talk about the features that have been used to implement blockchain. And for a gamer that hates blockchain to be like, oh, that makes sense. Oh, yeah, that just makes sense. Not just like things that are just like, oh, it's blockchain for no fucking reason, or because we just want to essentially just have like huge speculation or like a huge monetary like token attached for us to be able to essentially just raise without the right precautions in place. So it just makes no sense most of the time. Like, I just don't understand a lot of the approaches in the Web3 gaming space. Obviously, there's people that are doing cool stuff. Like, I respect everything that Yuga's doing. I think that ultimately a lot of them like will find their place and be refined into something that like can rival the traditional gaming space. But I think it's going to take a while for a lot of these IPs to find their feet and find their feet in just like a gameplay sense, like in terms of refinement towards something that's fun. I think that fun is something that's completely missing from Web3 in general. UX has been completely neglected. It's a terrible space to try and navigate. It's not enjoyable to navigate. So yeah, I think that's the current space. Essentially, like when I was speaking to multiple people, just like on the strategy side of, oh, we're going to flesh out a TCG. And they're like, wow, there's so many TCGs in Web3 though. And no, there's not. No, there's not. Like, they're all terrible. So they may as well not exist. And even just like on the gameplay sense, like there's not many games that are actively going to be even competing in a year or two. Like, you look at their early developments, they're essentially just trying to achieve a more basic version of Pokemon, or they're trying to achieve a more basic version of something else. Like, you can wait for it to come out, but you can see that it's not going to be very good. And you've got the traditional gaming space within those, say, 2 years of you developing that, like, that are moving at a blistering pace still, like just charging forward on new titles. So I think that there's a lot of just like hopium in the Web3 gaming space. and that most things will die the moment they basically hit the market, because they're building for a space that existed 2 years ago where people were excited for essentially anything. But
now we're excited for nothing.
I feel like they were excited for just making money, and now they're just, hey, hopefully that happens again. And by again, it means these projects fulfilling what they said they were going to fulfill.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, most projects didn't even get to the point where they could actually fulfill what they wanted to do.
You don't want less colors so that your brain doesn't have to work as hard.
The fundamental problem is that a game needs
literally.
Like you need to have people playing a game, and you can't have attached this
7 people in Decentraland.
Like you've got VIPs, and you're like, oh, here's our people that have bought these like early things, and there's like the VIP section of the game, and they get this and this, and there's 5 people playing it. Like, how can you be a VIP when there's 10 of you and 8 of you are VIPs? So if you're not building for a general audience and to try and bring in tens or hundreds of thousands of players into an ecosystem, then like you're building for no one. There's just no point even. Like, just pack your bags up, in my opinion.
You know what's the one last thing I'll say on this, because we got to wrap up on the time, but it's scary on the sense of the brand new Marvel game that came out 2 years ago, if I'm not mistaken. It was Marvel's Avengers. It was for all the consoles, the whole 9. It was actually not that bad, the campaign and whatnot. I played it, but it's to the point where no one's playing it, that they're literally shutting down the servers in a few days, and you can buy the full game with all the skins in the game for $3 right now if you wanted to, and just play offline, and that's it. But what's scary to me of that factor, that statement, is that Marvel has like this massive IP, this massive backing of Disney, all the things that could go right, and it still went wrong. And now all these Web3 games that we've invested into or are expecting or are excited for, they don't have that IP, they don't have that storytelling, they don't have that backing of this massive company, and we're just sitting there like waiting for it to be something like that. And it's kind of eye-opening.
I think that's exactly, you're not going to beat Marvel at their own game. And I think that like brands that big do reach a point of saturation where if you've got Marvel Snap doing really well, and that's soaking up like an incredible amount of, honestly, the people's attention in like the digital TCG space. I think they took like out like number 1 spot or something recently, like in terms of just uptick.
They're crushing it.
Like, you can have too much, like you can have too many impressions, right? Where you just, you know what? It's basically like you end up being that kid that's got like Marvel sheets, and you got Marvel pillows, and you've got Marvel like car seats in your car, and you end up being basically like Red Sox. But not everyone not everyone wants to be Red Sox. People want some like different things in their life. So I think that
we almost hit 60 minutes without Psych making fun of me, and he just made fun of me in the last like minute. Ridiculous.
There you go. Nailed it.
But yeah, if you're not leading into the flexibility that comes with building in like a somewhat experimental space, and building in a scale that's essentially indie, right? Like the most exciting games, honestly, coming out right now are all from indie developers. And it's because they come to it with a mentality where they're like, we need to bring something that's fun and different, because there's so many games out there.
Yeah.
And you look at, say, I know it was in development for a very long time, but like through Annapurna, like Stray came out, and people were going crazy just for the gameplay trailer for years, because it was just something that was so unique,
different. Like you're a cat,
and just a different.
It's like the
idea.
Goose game that went crazy, right? Like you're like running around. You're
what other Hollow Knight,
Hades, like that, like a super indie success, because it's just, or Spire, or what's it called? Tower. There's like a roguelite card game that goes.
Yeah, you mean it's like it's Attack the Spire or something like that? Yeah,
something.
I played a fair bit of that. It's like a roguelike drafting card game. Yeah,
and yeah, it's just like it's new, but like those they have like massive success because it's, or look at what's the hiding game where you're the spaceship guy, Among Us or whatever, like that. It's just like a small indie game that just like absolutely exploded because it was just like a unique take or unique gameplay that no one had really seen before. There's a lot of them. We just saw it recently with that the climbing game, like Up Only or whatever. from.
Exactly. Yeah, just like simple concepts done really differently, and I think that's one thing that people really misunderstand. Just like in the game development sense, is that like you just really need like that one good game loop, like something that's a bit different, something that's fun, and something that actually has that like adrenaline kick from something. For some reason, you want to keep coming back and doing that exact same thing again and again and again.
Like literally spawned an entire generation.
Exactly.
Of like
and essentially just like made Fortnite a thing, made like essentially
Apex.
Kept so many third-person shooter franchises alive because they were all on the down ramp.
It was bad.
And just breathed new life. No one ever likes to talk about it, sadly. I feel like no one ever tips their hat to Grounds. But
dude, I 100%. Everyone's like, "Oh, Fortnite's the best." I'm like, that's crazy.
Like Fortnite was a failed game franchise that just completely rebuilt into Battle Royale. Yeah,
you're not wrong, but they did it better.
You got to respect the skill there. Like someone recognized, like, hey, let's just turn on a dime and completely recreate this whole thing based on all the assets that we've got.
Yeah.
What I would say on that is that this is just an opinion, obviously, but Fortnite is just more clippable than a Battlegrounds. Like it's just like the action of when the action that you're doing is just
it always
back in the day. It's always been.
Yeah. Battle. So
and that's what
Player Unknown was too rough. It was too rough, and it felt too
sweaty.
Like not sweat. Like I would say that like when you've been playing Steam games for a long time, like when you've got like a large kind of community of gamers that have just been exposed to gaming for a long time, there's a particular look that just looks like it's from like the asset store. And I'm sorry to say that about Player Unknown Battlegrounds, but that's exactly what it feels like, where you just feel like you're playing someone's opened the Unreal Engine and been like, where can I buy a soldier model? And then I'll apply some grass. And then where can I buy a road and a car? That's the vibe.
You ever play that
it's because it was a single guy. Like it was like, one guy developing it? So obviously that
was super tiny,
But in terms of, it was incredibly fun to play. But visually, I guess that brings up a good point. You need to have a look. People need to see it and be like, oh, that's that. Unique. But when you looked at when you looked at Battlegrounds, you're like, I have no idea what that is. It looks like one of the discount games on the Steam store. I'm sorry to write off Battlegrounds in the same sentence, but they deserve their props. But I think that, that was a huge
walk
issue.
So the others can fly. That's right. What it is.
Very true.
And now that developer's in Web3. This full circle. I'm kidding. That would be.
Isn't he? Yeah, he is making a.
Oh, there you go. Look at that. I guessed it and it was right. There you go.
I think that essentially the entire industry is going to be connected to Web3 and in some sense, just in terms of even just interoperability on game passes or identity. Like it just has made sense for so long that like, why shouldn't you be able to have an invitational in your game that is for people that are in the top, say, 100 COD players, and you're like, oh, we've got a tournament on our first-person shooter. Come over because you're ranked in the top whatever on this other title. It's like an automatic invitational to come like play competitively in a particular tournament and stuff like that. I think that,
and they don't need to pick up that many people to be like, oh wow, this is something interesting to watch.
Yeah, all you need is basically just like an automated sign-in process and like probably a pool of cash to actually incentivize people to get involved. But I think like you'll start seeing that kind of thing. Obviously, everyone left and right will end up trying to sue each other because they'll be like, no, that's our Ethereum contract. You're not allowed to pull the addresses from that. I think that like those things are going to pop up, but I think that at a base level, you will see the tech seep its way into a lot of different things because it just makes sense in a lot of ways. Obviously not for everything, and it always comes down to like how is it implemented, but yeah, I think we'll see it happen, especially in the gaming sphere, even though it's filled with the vitriol right now.
Unfortunately.
But
hey, Psych,
we got to wrap it up. We're over time here, but always a great chat with you.
2 episodes pretty much with Psych here. Thank you so much for stopping by. Psych, anything that you would like to leave the listeners with
imparting
at
wisdom.
The end of this? Yeah, what would you like to say or spill?
I guess it'll just be RIP TCG, right? I'm just going to give it that final minute shell where I'm creating something really different. We're not creating just a TCG. The TCG side is just encapsulation of the characters. It's a full immersive 3D experience with all the cards are actually 3D characters that come out into the field of play. Really unique gameplay with just like an intimate setting with the camera being in there in the action. Very snappy gameplay. So if you enjoy something that's a bit more snappy, like when you look at Marvel Snap, like we're under 30-second turns, like sub 10-minute matches. So it benefits like the casuals, and then you can also get sweaty with it as well. Developed by a team of 16 AAA developers in partnership with Unity. So internal development team at Unity is pairing with us to create something. Who are what worked on Minecraft, worked on Hearthstone, have been part of Marvel Snap, Need for Speed franchise, nice. Harry Potter, like all sorts of just like absolute just like scorcher games that they've produced and also seen out to market. So we will be producing a game and we are developing it. It will come to market. You will be able to play it. It will be successful.
And
it will not be vaporware. It will not be vaporware like 99% of what in Web3 right now. So
I like it. Coming in hot. All right.
Coming in hot. I love it. I absolutely love it.
It's like with the financial advice.
I said, Psych, financial advice and all. No financial advice. Remember, do what you have to do, but don't put it on.
You purchase cards to play the game.
Put your name on it.
That's all I'm going to say. You're buying a product. So,
well, Crier, I would think you wouldn't want to put your name on something after none, but it is what it is. But burn. That's the payback for me being your exit liquidity on 2 shit coins. Burn. But Psych, thank you so much for stopping by. You're always welcome to hang out with us, nerd out with us, and
TGC with us.
G with us. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thanks, Stocks. You've just destroyed the entire podcast.
Dude, he does this every episode.
I do it every single episode. But for everyone listening at home, thank you so much for tuning in to another. Come on. Crier always with a little jab like that pisses me off. We'll be back next week with another episode, and maybe without Crier this time. Psych, you're looking for a job? I need a co-host. Thank you so much. Goodbye.
Actually.
Actually.
All right. Take it easy, guys.